I was talking to my friends about a trip to go hiking and camp out in the wilderness for a few days, just to chill and get our minds on something else other than work and life. So it was the night before, and one of my friends, Mike, said he couldn't make it, so it was just me and Roy. The day came and we were excited, so I drove to Roy's and picked him up, and we started the ride to the place that we would be camping. We had talked about camping there all our lives. We started to listen to the radio for a bit, and while we were listening it cut out into static, and changing stations didn't help. I said, well shit, the radio's broken. So we drove the final mile without it, and parked our car off the clearing near the road. We grabbed our supplies, and it was midday. The sun was in the middle of the sky, and it was about 60 to 70 degrees outside, and felt awesome. We started out on our trek into the wilderness. We went about 1 or 2 miles before the sun started to set, and we found a good spot to set up camp. We collected enough wood to get the fire going, and we sat next to the fire roasting some hot dogs we had brought along with us, and we're just talking and goofing around. All of a sudden, we hear a crack behind us and look around, and just brush it off as being a little spooked. We continued to talk until we decided to put out the fire and hit the hay. I slept a few hours, and then I was snapped awake during the night. Roy was awake as well, and we both looked at each other confused. Outside was dead silent, too silent. I got out of the tent with a flashlight and looked around the tent and into the trees around our camp, coming up with nothing. I chalked it up to being in an unfamiliar location, and we went back to sleep. The next day, we collected some wood and just messed around, finding a small pond about a quarter of a mile away from our camp. We skipped some stones, had a great time, and it was getting dark again, so we headed back to camp. When we were a couple yards away from it, something looked odd. As we got closer, we noticed our camp had been destroyed. Stuff was scattered all around. We were pissed and were yelling out it wasn't funny and to go fuck yourselves, all the while not knowing what happened. We cleaned it all up and reassembled our tents. By now it was very dark. We luckily had lit a fire, and once it was all cleaned up, we sat back down by the fire to cook some more grub. After eating, we had a moment of silence, and then we heard another crack deep in the woods. By this time, we could hear something getting closer and closer, until I felt like it was only feet away from us. Then we heard a crunch right in front of us, behind the tents. So we both got up to investigate. We could hear whatever it was run off into the trees again. To say the least, we were very spooked while we were getting ready for bed, and we heard a familiar voice that sounded a lot like Mike. We were silent, and it kept calling out for help, but we were way too scared at this point to get out of the tents and see. I managed to get a little bit of sleep, but then I woke up and Roy was not next to me, but it was Mike. We looked at each other confused. Mike looked around so confused. I asked what happened to Roy, and he insisted that Roy had to stay back because he couldn't make it, and asked me why I didn't remember. I was silent and thought I'm done and got up out of the tent. It must have been midnight because it was pitch dark outside. I told Mike we're leaving right now and started packing up, but Mike was confused, saying why are we leaving? But he figured I would leave if he stayed. So we packed up our supplies and started our way back to the car. On our way we hear a crack and stop dead in our tracks, and hear crunches running towards us again. It swept our feet out from beneath us, slamming us into the dirt. We got up and started to run faster and faster until we saw the car. We ran the whole way, still struck with fear. When we get to the car, I look into the passenger seat to see Roy, and then I look in the back seat and see Mike. Everyone seemed to be shocked to see each other. I started the engine and drove back home, speeding down the roads, still trembling. I went to turn on the radio, forgetting that it didn't work earlier, but it seemed to work fine. It sounded slightly off, but I was just happy to hear something. A report came on over the radio about a man who went camping alone and had been in the woods for weeks. They were still searching for him, and the friends had called in the disappearance when he didn't come home. The part that really got me was that the person's name was Sean, and that was me. I was in the woods for a week, and they said I was camping by myself. I look around the car and there's no one there. Confused, I sped the whole way home. I talked to Roy and Mike, and they both insisted that they did not go camping with me. With Valentine's Day coming up, I figured I would finally tell my story about the day that ruined online dating for me. A few years ago, my friend convinced me to get a Tinder account. I had been single for about a year and a half after finally getting out of a 3-year abusive relationship. But that's a whole other story for another day. So I decided, why not? I'll make the account, and if I don't like it, I'll delete it. What harm could it do? Little did I know. I was blown away by how many guys messaged me. I think we have a hard time admitting that it's a bit of a confidence booster. Anyways, I've been talking to this one guy that I found very attractive, and we seem to have a lot in common. So finally I agreed to meet up with him, but only if it's in public. So after a bit of back and forth, we agree on him coming to my work during lunch and just hang out for a bit. I was currently working at a grocery store deli, and I was back taking orders and helping customers when about 45 minutes later, I noticed a man staring at me. He was wearing sunglasses, which already made him stand out since we were inside, and I automatically knew it was him. I wasn't sure what to do. It kind of seemed like he wanted to stay hidden from me. Do I call him out and say hi? I ended up just ignoring it and justifying it as he's probably just coming in to make sure I was who I said I was. But looking back, that's just giving myself too much credit. I'm no model or anything like that. I'd say I'm average looking and on the chunky side, with some confidence issues. After he left, I thought maybe he didn't like what I looked like in person, and that's why he came in to check me out first. But I now know better. So about 2 hours later, he texts me, "I'm outside," and I replied that I'm just clocking out and I'll meet him out front. It was the same guy as before, just without the glasses this time. I didn't bring it up or tell him I saw him earlier. It just felt kind of awkward. I always seem to give people the benefit of the doubt and try to justify their actions. Lunch went really well, and I really liked him, so I ended up just forgetting about the earlier situation. I told him that I wanted to take things slow, and he seemed totally okay with it. We both really liked the Utah Jazz, so he invited me over to his house to watch the game after I got off work. My coworker and friend told me they had a bad feeling about it, but I just told him, I'll be fine. I'm a big girl. We both laughed, and then I was on my way to his house. When I got there, he told me he had a roommate, but he wasn't home, so it would just be the two of us. The night was going very well, until he said he needed to go to the bathroom. Before I go any further, I need to explain his living room a little. Right when you walk in, the TV is near the front door. The living room and kitchen didn't have a wall between them. It was just one big open space, and the couch was placed in between, so it wasn't against any wall. Sitting on the couch, you're facing the front door, and the kitchen is behind you. I hear him open the door, and I continue watching the game. I feel him come up behind the couch and put his hands on my shoulders, down to my hands, and he lifts them behind me. I thought he was just goofing around, so I went with it, until he starts making my hands go lower, when I suddenly feel his junk. Shocked, I bolt up, turn around and see him butt naked, fully erect, with the most serious face. His bright blue eyes just slicing into me. I felt dread. All I could think to say was, what are you doing?" Not changing his expression, in a monotone voice, he replies, "What do you think?" I just came here to watch the game and hang out." "You don't just come over to a guy's house you meet on Tinder, not expecting to hook up." Shocked and disgusted, I reply, "I made it clear. I want to take things slow. This is not slow." Fuming mad, he walked around the couch and started yelling at me, calling me a tease. At this point, I wanted to get out, so I grabbed my purse from beside the couch and started to walk towards the door. When he saw what I was doing, he ran up to the door locked both the locks, and stood there, still naked and still erect, telling me I'm not leaving till I slept with him. Still in shock, I laughed thinking he must be joking. This went on for 2 hours. I would go to the door and he would push me away or grab the doorknob telling me no. I am now in survival mode, racking my brain on what I should do. My phone is dead and I don't know the area. It's been 2 hours and he's still not letting me go. I honestly felt like he was going to hurt me if I didn't do what he said. So finally I told him, okay, but only if you let me go to the bathroom and freshen up. He had me go to his bathroom in his bedroom and said he was going to make us dinner and drinks, acting like nothing happened, like he just didn't spend 2 hours yelling at me, holding me against my will until I would sleep with him. I just sat in there trying to get my phone to turn on, but knowing it was fully dead and I had no way to contact anyone for help. But that's when I remembered. When he was showing me his apartment, he showed me the balcony they shared with the neighbors. I put my ear up next to the bathroom door. I could still hear him in the kitchen. I opened the bathroom door slowly, praying he doesn't walk in or hear me coming out. I slowly tiptoe across his bedroom to the patio when I hear him yell, "Are you kidding me?" I felt my heart sink into my stomach. At this point, I knew I was caught. I slowly look up and I could see him through the crack of the door, walking to the kitchen sink with his finger in his mouth. He cut his finger. I got a boost of confidence and slowly opened his balcony door. Thank God it wasn't loud. But the confidence didn't last very long. I started thinking, what if he knows his neighbors and they don't help me? What if they're not home? What if I catch his attention and he pulls me back inside and God knows what happens to me? I took a deep breath and knocked on their patio glass door. It felt like forever, and I finally heard someone walk up to the door. She looked through the glass, very confused, but once she saw my face swollen from crying and distress, she opened the door. "Can I please walk through your house to leave?" She seemed a little confused, so I said, "Please, I just want to go home," choking back tears. She guides me through her bedroom. I see a man walking into the bedroom, and I jump, thinking it was my date coming to find me. But as I look up, it's a 40-something-year-old man looking at me confused. Then the woman. She just nods and guides me out of the front door. She gives me a pat on the back, and I tell her thank you as I rush towards my car. As I'm at the bottom of the stairs, I hear a door open. I expect when I look back to see the woman, but it's my date. He's still naked, and once he sees me, he chases me. Now it's winter in Utah, and the ground is slippery from the ice, but I don't care. I finally make it to my car. I get in, I lock the door, and I look up the front of his apartment. He's standing there on the top of the stairs, just staring at me, and he finally turns back around and goes inside. I guess it was too cold for him to chase me all the way to my car. I hit the gas and get as far away as possible. I don't want to go home, so I drive to my parents'. I knock on my mom's bedroom window because it's about midnight now. I tell her everything and spend the night there. I ended up not calling the cops. I just didn't want to deal with it, which I regret to this day, because I don't want it to happen to another girl. But it's been so long and I don't want to go through it all just for them to tell me it's not enough evidence. I know I made a lot of mistakes that night, but I am a completely changed person now, and that's why I'll never use a dating site again.